and inclusion, let us all close our eyes and become present to create a sacred community together. So relax in your chair, take in a deep breath through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold, and exhale through the mouth and hold. Now picture yourself floating on the ocean as the waves come in. And on the inhale, you're floating up on a wave. And on the exhale, you're floating back down. Up on the inhale, back down on the exhale. If thoughts should enter your head, just observe them and let them pass. Just like the waves are moving past you. Up on the inhale, down on the exhale. And on your next inhale, think to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Part of that, what that meditation does, in addition to creating the sacred space together, is to remind us that we're not here to give one another advice, and some people may choose to share something from their personal lives. And our job is just to listen and to create space for that. And that's a little bit countercultural because, you know, a lot of us like to be advice givers, and there are all kinds of advice columns that I love to read in the newspaper. As parents, we always want to be a fix-it for our kids, but our job here is really just to listen and to travel together on this spiritual journey. So as was our previous custom as well, I'm going to share some slides. So we have a brand new starter page with the Tikkun Middot Curriculum. And as before, we'll start, I wanted to just give you a preview of what's coming. We're going to be practicing each of these soul traits for 2 weeks each. So we're starting, the first two actually aren't soul traits. They're more like important mindfulness practices and important practices to ground us in good practice, good Musar practice as we begin. And then we'll go into humility, patience, and anger, et cetera, et cetera. So as before, this is drop-in. So if you don't make a week, you're always welcome to come back another week. And these recordings will be available on the American Musar YouTube page if you choose to watch. Okay, so you may have seen in today's email, I had an excerpt from a article from about a year ago from Rabbi Amy Alberg, and she wrote about this, about Hitlamdut, which, as we'll learn, is self-reflective learning. So it suggests that we can rise to the spiritual opportunity of the moment, carefully and non-judgmentally observing which issues arise for us, embracing the learnings that may emerge. So I wanted to know, maybe what is something you've learned about yourself during the course of this last year in the pandemic.
I've learned that I don't have as hard a time being alone as a lot of people I know. And I thought that that was pretty interesting. Doesn't mean I like being alone, but I don't have as hard a time with it. And I think it's because it may be that as a freelancer, I write, and those are very isolated kind of endeavors, where I'm not in an office and I'm not around a lot of people all the time. So I'm somewhat used to being contained, self-contained. And I know a lot of people around me are absolutely going crazy, and I am not. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I think I would like to be more social, but I'm kind of used to not. So that's definitely something I've observed. And actually, as a result of that, I think I'd really like to, when this whole thing is over, get out more and try and mix and mingle more and be with people more. But I'm just not having as hard a time with it as a lot of people I know. So that's one thing I've observed.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. And I really like the way you phrase that as kind of an observation, and it's really not like a judgmental thing. It's just like something I didn't know about myself, and it has some strengths and it has some weaknesses. But boy, it gave me some resilience, to these times, which maybe I didn't anticipate. So wonderful, thank you. Yeah, Jan.
I feel the same way too, Bonnie. Well, I've been working at home anyway for a very long time, 6.5 years. So it's nothing new for me to work at home, but I am resilient. I went through a tough time 3 years ago, and I get out with my friends. I see my friends when I'm able, when the weather's nice and it's getting nicer. So the sunshine also helps. But yeah, I write also. And your words mimic my thoughts, so I'm not going to repeat them. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Other things that people have learned. Yeah, Carrie.
I'm also comfortable being by myself, but if I couldn't get outside as much as I can, I probably would go crazy. But I've been fortunate enough to live in places that have woods near me or some kind of outdoor escape, safe escape. So that's the part that I realized since the winter is starting to ease off. I am so grateful to be able to get outside and walk and stuff like that.
Thank you, Carrie. And Wendy, I saw your hand as well.
I've learned the value of this kind of meeting, this kind of group involvement. Because like both of you, I'm also the other two. I'm also a writer and do a lot of work at home. And then normally when I purpose to do something, I feel like I have the strength to do it and make changes in myself. But just having this accountability with you guys has been so great for me. It's like if I want to give into something, I think about you. I'm like, wait a minute, there's all those people. Not that you're depending on me or anything, but it's just, I don't like family. It's kind of really cool to be part of something like this. And I really appreciate it. And strengthening, I think it's really strengthening.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. It's wonderful to hear. Yeah, Carol.
Oh, I found out that I can be solitary for a very long time and be very solitary, living alone, and I'm super isolated because of my medical conditions. But I also got some lessons in trust. And I learned that there are people out there that care what happens to me. And if I don't show up, they're going to wonder. Like one night I forgot to show up for choir and I got a phone call saying, Carol, are you okay? And of course I related here my plumbing disaster last summer and how people helped me out with that. I'm not getting as much social as I would like, but I know that there are certain people that if I'm in trouble and really need, can't be my snarky independent self, which most of the time I can be, I'm finding out I'm pretty resourceful more than I realized. There are people I can call. And that's been a really important lesson because I really honestly did not realize how much that the universe had showed up for me.
What a wonderful gift to have that realization, and we can see ourselves as, oh, I'm really independent, I can take care of all of this. But like, hey, but maybe I don't have to all the time. There's some other people there. That's great. Janet.
Oh, I don't have a problem with being alone, but I'm a writer, and it's really not been an issue. And my husband and my brother live with me, so there's a lot going on. But I have discovered that I am extremely compulsive, and if a sock or if a pillowcase is missing, I'm going nuts. And it seems to me that this OCD thing or whatever it is has become more intense during the pandemic. And I don't know if other people find that. I don't know. There are psychiatrists, psychologists among the group. Maybe I need a cure for missing socks or something, but that's what I've discovered. And yes, I can laugh at it.
Yes, well, good. It's good to be able to laugh at. And of course, as we said before, we're not going to give you advice on your particular situation, but it's wonderful that you can recognize that and laugh at that. And I know one of the things that I've noticed, and I see a couple more hands, but I just take this opportunity to share, like I've realized just how important patience has been to me, patience in the Musar sense of being able to endure difficult situations, because I've had some very rough times this last year. And just aside from like grief and other stuff, it's just been difficult to miss things and to miss people and to not visit people, but being able to just endure that situation and knowing that I had those reserves as someone who did not think of himself as a patient person and is often impatient, or at least used to be impatient in like business settings and things. Knowing sort of where I still have some triggers and where I'm able to endure has been an eye-opener. Anyone else? Joanne?
Yeah, I was going to say, and now I forgot who said it, but the opposite of being OCD. One thing I've noticed is how careless I can be. And I told my son, he thought it was nuts, of course, that, it's like if I knock something off, I blame the item, the object. I said, what are you doing again? But I noticed that I am very careless and trying to work on that, trying to be more organized. I guess that's the one of order that I still need a lot of work on. And I've had challenges with personalities because the sisterhood. There's two very opinionated women who usually have the opposite opinion of each other, and I'm kind of in the middle. And then the expectations, anyway, it's like, so I'm learning those things. And I do enjoy my solitude a lot. And I never worked at home. And so I'm very distractible. And, so then I can start cleaning up in the kitchen, even though I started off sorting the laundry. Oh yeah, and the one way not to lose socks is never do laundry, because it always seems like there's an odd sock. And so I took my bag of odd socks and put it aside. I said, I'm gonna, make a stuffed animal and use this as a stuffed animal. I did make my a sock puppet for one of my little cousins, which he liked.
Wonderful.
For this fellow who came in. Okay.
Well, thank you, Joanne. I want to transition us into looking a little bit more deeply. This was a great sort of introduction of opening the window into looking within. One of the changes for the new curriculum is instead of doing the 4 assumptions, I've pulled out, and they had a section kind of in the general introduction. There's some important key concepts they called in the Tikkun Middot curriculum. Actually, before I get into that, we've been talking about Tikkun Middot. Does anybody know what that means, or what does it sound like? You may notice a similarity to Tikkun Olam. What is Tikkun Olam?
Well, that's the world.
To heal the world. So it'd be what is it to heal the self?
Yeah,
it's kind of like
To heal the soul.
Yeah, to heal the self, to heal the soul. Midot, that's a Hebrew word for soul trait. So
those
it's kind of healing ourselves. And although I don't, I didn't include this on the slide, of course, when we're healing the world, of course, healing ourselves has to be a part of that, because the more whole we are, the more whole we're going to show up in whatever situation we're in. Yeah, Eileen.
But it's not, as we know, I think it's not what I've heard, our duty to repair the entire world, but not to turn our back on it. Mm-hmm. As in our soul traits, we can't, it's not a cure, it's a practice.
Yes. Absolutely.
Of reflection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of like this Hitlamdut, this self-reflective learning, is kind of learning to reflect with a gentle eye. It's like letting go of, the need for perfection, or not beating ourselves up when we make mistakes. So may I have a volunteer to kind of read these four concepts? I can't see most of you, so feel free to just unmute.
I can read.
Okay.
We are souls. The evil inclination is a poor translation of Yetzer Hara, because it is not necessarily negative. It is our teacher. Each person has a unique soul curriculum that will guide them on a path of growth. The soul traits, Midot, are our levers for growth.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we could spend a lot of time sort of going through all of these, but this is, there's nothing here which is in conflict with like the assumptions or the approach of American Mussar. The difference is just a little bit in emphasis. And like different Mussar teachers, different Mussar curriculum, different Mussar books, they might emphasize one thing over another. So, in my book, for example, I say that we're souls, but I didn't elevate that to like, the top level thing. But for this practice, we're going to see, well, what happens if we sort of look, and that's where we're going to kind of start today. I think that's what I included in the email. So what does it mean to say that we're a soul?
To me, a soul, to say we were a soul means that's our real essence. Mm. And sometimes we cover that up, but we're not in touch with that.
Mm. Yeah, it's our real essence. It's who we really are. What else?
It's that most intangible thing beyond the brain and the body that we cannot hold on to. We can, science the body and the brain, but we can't science the soul. Mm-hmm. Science isn't really a verb, but I think you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely know what you mean. I saw The Martian. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Jane.
I think it's our character, our motivations, our drive, our actual self, that's unique to ourselves and to no one else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something unique to us. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. My name's Paul. So for me, I think of it as if I am doing any kind of meditation, it's the part of me that still remains when there's a part, there's a moment when there's no thought, when there's just a beingness. So it's not just because I'm not thinking, because I'm not actively engaged with the world, doesn't mean I don't exist. There's still something there.
Beautiful, thank you. Eileen, and then Wendy, and then Kathy.
The thought is the impression I leave on the world, whether I'm present or not.
Okay, great.
I
Wendy.
just first thought solitary being, kind of embracing it as a responsibility in a way. Like I'm one, and thank goodness I only have to deal with this one. I don't have to be everyone, just this one solitary being for now.
Thank you. Kathy.
I just think of it as our spiritual self rather than our physiological self.
Yeah, and I would say that, I think that's a good distinction. And I would add to that, and to what a number of you have said, I think by saying that we are a soul, I think we could also interpret that perhaps as saying we're only a soul in some ways, like the body is subordinate to the soul. It's not like an element of our nature, it is our nature. And I think when we think about like how we show up in the world, how we can kind of go through this practice, it's about, tuning our soul, refining our soul. Maybe it's about uncovering our soul, and that's what some of those other kind of things we're talking about, which each week, as before, we'll sort of spend a little bit of time on each one of them. But I think as a starting point, it's this idea, it's like, I'm a soul, what does that mean? We're all souls here together. Okay, so now, let's actually talk about this, this idea of Hitlamdut, about reflective learning. So may I have, sorry about that. May I have a volunteer to read, to start reading? And we're going to stop and talk about these as we go along.
The practice of Musar occurs in the moment and is based on one's ability to cultivate awareness and a relaxed and accepting attitude toward what is present right now.
Okay, let me pause you there, Carol. So I wish I could see everybody and see the slides. Let me try to fiddle with this a little bit. I don't think this is going to work though. Yes, nope. Okay, well, what is it? Are people, I don't know how many people are aware or sort of practice mindfulness, but this is a mindfulness perspective. And so what does it kind of mean to have a relaxed and accepting attitude about what is present right now?
I think you're centered and focused and in touch with all aspects inside you and at peace.
I think it's also about not thinking past and not thinking future. It's just now.
Right.
It's not worrying about what's going to happen next or worrying about what happened before.
Right.
So does that mean that we're calm and happy?
Well, we'll
It's strive for that.
Right, sure. We'd all like to be calm. We'd all like to feel sort of happy or joy. But a relaxed and accepting attitude towards what's present right now means that, okay, if I'm sad, if I'm angry, if I'm anxious, how can we have an accepting attitude? It's like, oh, that's where I am in this moment. And, I think when we get into the this moment part of the space, we're also recognizing that this moment is going to change. And in the next moment, at some point, we're going to be in a very different place. Okay, so let's continue.
I can see mindfulness. Oh, I can see mindfulness as being hand in hand with equanimity.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Equanimity is the most direct expression of, I think, practicing mindfulness. And it contributes to all of the other soul traits, and it is supported by all of the other soul traits. Okay, let's keep going.
Want me to go on?
Yes, please.
Into this spacious place, we bring the quality of Hitlamdut, non-judgmental exploration of the truth of my experience, moment to moment. In mindfulness practice, this quality is sometimes called curiosity, investigation, or beginner's mind.
Okay, one more bullet.
Hitlamdut is the capacity to ask ourselves open-ended questions such as, what is true in this moment?
Great, thank you. Okay, so what is, this is from Rabbi Sheila Peltz-Weinberg. So what is Rabbi Weinberg saying in these next points? What is Hitlamdut?
It's awareness, I think, of the moment you're in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
I also think it's a moment of wanting to learn and grow.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what does it mean to be aware? I'm here. Doesn't that mean that I'm aware? I'm sitting here. What's it like not to be aware?
I think what Carol was saying before, it's like if you're not in the past, thinking about the past or the future.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, like all I can think of is be here now, like that's like one of those things from the 60s. But Ram Dass. But it's this mindfulness also,
Yeah.
In the present moment and stop thinking about other things so that you can be aware of what's going on with you and what's going on with the world in this moment.
Great, thank you. So she concludes by saying there is no agenda except to see the patterns of thought. What is running through my mind in this moment? Are these stories true? Can I allow them to pass through my mind like clouds in the sky? Does anyone have thoughts about how, is this really alien to kind of the way you live most of the time? Or is this something you strive for? Or how does this, or is this just not, how does this kind of fit in to your current existence?
I think for me, it relates to being sort of having the capacity of being surprised by myself, to be able to almost be outside my,
Observe yourself.
Yeah, observe myself. And it's the observer that is, I think, of the spirit. I'm reminded of a time when Carrie and I were out walking our dogs in the woods up in New Hampshire, and I had been really upset with people that allowed their dogs to roam free. We had a dog who did not respond at all well to other dogs encroaching, was very protective of us, and could get very nasty and aggressive. And I just started screaming at this man to get him to get his dog away. And there was a part of me, I had done this several times by now, and there was a part of me that was able to stand to the side and think, wow, you seem to be like, is this really the right way to approach this? Is this really what you need to do? And because I did not judge what was going on, I was just observing it. Afterwards, I was able to kind of let that particular response go. it was really interesting to have that experience.
Great, thank you. Yeah, Elizabeth.
So that reminds me something I heard from Rabbi Tversky, who passed away, I don't know, a month ago now, where he was talking about anger. And he said the following. He said, anger is an emotion. As an emotion, it's accepted. You have it. It's you are feeling it. It's not a bad thing to feel an emotion like anger. Where we have to be mindful is how we react to it. And he had a name for the reaction. He named it rage. And he also had another step, and he said, then the next question to ask yourself is, how long do you hang on to that feeling? And he would call that resentment. And so his teaching was, we have to accept our emotions for what they are. The place where we have agency is how we react to them. And I think this is where Musar really teaches us about these choice points. And then after that is how long you hang on to the emotion. And that was maybe what the person who was talking about being in the moment was alluding to. You don't have to hang on to things from the past that serve no purpose anymore. So anyway, that's my thought right now. That and the distinguishing, I mean, how we really put a label on these 3 stages of anger, for example, that to me was very helpful. Sometimes we say, oh, we have to be mindful, but then we don't know exactly how to be mindful to be effective in moving past our feelings and emotions.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. And I think that you made a number of good points. I'm going to uplift that last one about, we can say, oh, yeah, I got to be mindful, step aside, but these are like very easy things to say, and they're actually very hard things to do. And so that's where, having a Musar practice, having a Tikkun Middot practice, recognizing, we don't have to, like in, I'm sorry, I don't remember you may have said your name, Carrie's, I'm guessing husband. What was your name?
It's Paul.
Paul. Like in Paul's example, it was, okay, well, this was the 3rd time around and still yelling, but he took a step forward where it's like, okay, I'm not, I at least have some awareness, I have some knowledge. And so when we have, when we take that step forward, and we can kind of stand aside and sort of recognize that present moment, as he said, it's like, okay, well, I've seen it and now I can let it go. And I've had so many people that have really pissed me off over the years. And I really wish I had that capacity. I still have a long way to go in developing it, of not sort of holding on to it and just sort of recognizing, okay, that person really annoyed me. And now, where do we go from here? Okay, great. Now let's move on. Elizabeth also, and maybe I think someone else may have referred to this. Janos, were you going to say something? Yeah.
Yes, I want to just share my view of anger.
Please.
Anger is a secondary emotion, is not a primary emotion. So we are angry about something. So when you say I'm angry, people will say, why are you angry? So we have a primary, if I'm sad or helpless, that would be primary emotion. So I'm really reacting with anger, and anger is just a burst of energy. And now if you use it positive way, you can go for a run. Or if you go negative way, you go into rage and go into destruction. So that's how I view it. That's what I just wanted to share.
Oh, thank you. Well, we have, I think in about a month, we're going to be spending a couple of weeks on patience and anger. So we will have lots to talk about. I suspect I'm not the only person who's had moments of being angry. I don't know, I might be, but I suspect other people have dealt with this as well.
Greg, you had asked earlier if awareness is just part of your daily practice, or if that's something unusual to you. And I think not always would be my answer. I'm not always aware. Sometimes I'm really oblivious, and I don't know if other people feel that way. And sometimes I'm deliberately oblivious. For example, if something is overwhelming, I can block it out and be oblivious to it. So I wonder, awareness, it sounds like, well, of course, you're always aware of things, but I don't think so. Not for me, not always. And there are different reasons for that.
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. I think that's very true. I certainly know that's true for myself. And there's a lot of ways to be just oblivious, to just be on autopilot. And there's a lot of ways, I think, some people use phrases like sleepwalking or just kind of going through. But I think what we're looking to do is wherever we are, kind of in that how aware I am or am not, is how can we sort of open that door a little bit more. I'm going to present something, and then we're going to move into, I'm going to go through one thing quickly, and then we're going to move into our practice, the idea of practice. And this is a quote from Rabbi Shlomo Wolbe, one of the great Musar masters of the 20th century. And his work, I think, is going to be featured a lot in the weeks ahead. So he wrote that one who wants to work on oneself must understand well the depth of this matter and must agree and commit to the fundamental practice of self-reflective learning from now and throughout one's life, in all one's affairs, of being only a learner until the day of death. Even when one reaches the time of death, they do not die, but they learn how to die. This is the way of the practitioner of Musar. And there's a lot of strength that can come from this idea, well, I'm just a learner, because if you're feeling kind of bad about yourself, you didn't do something that well, you're like, well, I'm just a learner. So of course, I didn't do it that well because I'm just learning. Or if we're starting to feel a little bit arrogant about, wow, I'm really, really good at such and such a thing. Maybe that makes me a little better, maybe that makes me important. But if we can take this attitude, well, actually, I'm just a learner, then it can sort of help taper down on some of those feelings as well. So now we're going to take this focus, this self-reflective learning, and we're going to move it into a practice for the week. And that's one of the differences as well, is we'll have an opportunity to kind of take something away with us, to maybe to work on and practice. And so what we're going to do is we're going to read this and think about it, and then I will split you up into groups, and you'll talk about sort of how you might want to apply this in your week. So may I have a volunteer to read this, please?
We apply a stance of self-reflection and learning, Hitlamdut, to all we do in our practice. One aspect is observation. We try to see the familiar as new. A classic practice is to take a rote activity like brushing teeth and notice how you brush your teeth. See outside of the habit and watch yourself or others. Another aspect is an attitude of acceptance towards our imperfection. If we feel the need to be perfect, there's no room for learning. When I can accept that I'm not perfect at loving kindness or organization, there is room to learn. Finally, the perspective that life continuously presents me with learning opportunities helps me see my experience as such. The goal of Hitlamdut is to break out of rote living and let the growth begin.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So here's what we'll be doing with our partners. So what is one practice of self-reflective learning that you can do in the following week? Find an area of your life where you might show interest, focusing on a part that becomes routine. And what might you learn from paying more attention? It's not necessarily changing this at all. It's just, kind of like we said, well, if I look back in this last year, here's something I learned. It might be surprising to see, well, what might I learn if I just really watch myself brush my teeth and pay attention? What might I learn about myself? Or maybe there's another practice that you would like to try. So I'm going to open the breakout rooms. So you will see something on your screen which says, join breakout room. So just click on the breakout room and you will go into that. Joanne, are you still here? There you go. Okay. Well, for those of you who are watching on the streaming, this is the time when I'm going to stop the recording here.
Good. I agree.
Okay, well, we can, part of one thing I wanted to do at the end was if anyone wanted to hang out for a couple of minutes, just to hear a little bit of feedback on how the new format's going. And there's certainly room to kind of tweak things a little bit. But I'm curious, I would love to hear, even in that short time, did anyone come up with a self-reflective practice they would like to share? I came up with one, but I will open the floor up if someone else would like to go first. Yeah, Jane.
So it's something I've recently begun working on, is being more mindful of my emotional mood and eating. And not being critical of myself, not being judgmental, not being perfectionist about it, not giving myself a hard time about the moments I might buy something that is not the best, but it's not a lot and it's very little, and I'm still losing weight.
Good.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Jane. Other people?
Harry and I also talked about food, interestingly, Jane, but we were talking about taking a rote activity and trying to make it something that we are more aware of. And I started talking about breakfast, something that I just throw together and give very little thought to and just consider it. Let me get this over with because I know I have to put something in my stomach before I start my day. And how can we change that and enjoy it a little bit more and appreciate it a little bit more and make it something that we care about a little bit more, so that we maybe eat more healthfully or prepare it more lovingly so that it comes out to be something more than just stuff on a plate. Or, in Harry's case, appreciating that somebody prepared this for him and not, just looking at it in a different way. And maybe that even starts the day in a different way.
Yeah, that's great, Bonnie. And I think there's a couple of steps there. And the first step is just, sort of observing and paying more attention, doing whatever you're doing today. And, it sounds like as soon as you even started to think about it, you're asking questions. Is this the way I have to do it? Is this the way I want to do it? But that very first step, the simplest, in some ways the hardest step, is just to kind of really take a look and see what's going on. I know for me, what I was thinking about a lot is many of you or most of you probably know, I'm also in rabbinical school. I'm a permanent Zoom student because I live in the San Francisco area. The school's in Los Angeles. Now everybody's on Zoom, at least for the rest of this year. But I want to sort of pay attention to what I'm doing when I'm in these classes. And it's different from class to class, but if I'm just blindly taking notes, or am I fidgeting, or am I judging people? And I just want to kind of pay attention to kind of what's the meta conversation going on when I'm in these classes. And I suspect it will be, and why am I getting out my phone now? There's a class going on here. So that's kind of what I'm gonna pay attention to. other thoughts? Yeah,
I also mentioned my phone, that when I'm out in nature walking my dog, I'm going to be reflecting more on nature and what's around me than what's coming across my cell phone.
That's interesting that you said that, Greg, about doing too many things at once. I took my glasses off. What that means is I can't read. I can't, I mean, I can see what you've posted and things like that. I can read that well enough, but it also means that I can't be distracted to read other things.
Yeah, interesting strategy.
And I don't wear my glasses when I take walks. I'm not blind. I mean.
Right. I understand. It's funny. My wife did a strategy where she found a setting on her phone where she can make it black and white, just so it would be kind of a little less interesting and addictive, just to kind of pull it out. So, and again, just sort of taking these moments to kind of say, well, what can I learn from my life, and what might be this, is there a growth opportunity that kind of comes from just sort of observing what we're doing? I'll be curious to kind of see where this takes us in the next week. And I think it's a skill that if we sort of build up the skill just a little bit, then when we start saying, well, now we're going to look at how humility is showing up, we'll kind of have this muscle of kind of looking within and looking without judgment that we can draw upon.
One of the chores I really hate is doing dishes and emptying the dishwasher. Who doesn't, right? I think I'm going to try and be a little more aware of when I'm actually doing the dishes. I like to cook. I make a mess. So I have to clean it up. And maybe even be more aware when I'm doing the cooking of everything that I'm doing. Because I've been taking these chef classes online. And one of the things he talks about is your knife skills and paying real attention to how you cut everything. So that's another place to be very self-aware. He says consistency of cut is consistency of cook.
Yeah.
I need
you don't want to cut yourself either.
No, and I have done that, but no, I'm past that. But maybe that's another place to focus.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's many right answers. I'm sure each of us could find many right answers for ourselves. So it's part of the discipline is just kind of picking one sort of area. It's like, I'm going to pay attention to everything all the time. Well, no, you're not. That's too hard. We're not, our brains are not designed to do that. But I could pay attention to this, and I might even pick one class, to pay attention to. So we'll see.
I thought of something that there's a tendency, many of us have a tendency to want to get through the dishes, get through the laundry. Maybe we don't need to get through them. I mean, after all, what's on the other side of get through anyway?
More dishes, more laundry. I do have a technique that I started to the dishes because I had a big hesitant, I was really not doing, and wanted to put it off. When my son lived with me, I actually said, I just don't, he did the dishes a few times, and he, not a lot of times, but a few times. But I make it like, okay, I'm just going to do 5, or I'm just going to do 10 pieces of whatever's in the sink. And that makes it much easier. And I also have some other strategies like spraying on this special soap or vinegar and water that loosens up the stuff. And, so it's like experimental almost. And I also been writing down everything I eat and trying to stay away from sugar and stuff that has sugar in it. And I lost 4 pounds, so I'm happy.
Thank you. Yes, there's
Good job.
Lots been done and written about mindfulness around dishes doing and noticing the wetness of the water, noticing the warmth of the water, the slipperiness of the soap, and there's lots of things. And I think, as a reminder, as a last reminder to all of us, is we want to keep this spirit of open-heartedness, of Shema, that we don't need to rush to fix what we notice. We just want to notice it. And we don't need to be too quick to fix it because there's nothing wrong. We're just learning. you know, and you might notice something the first day is like, oh, this isn't good, I'm going to fix it. But maybe by the third or fourth day, be like, you know, this kind of works for me. You know, there's a reason why I do it this way. You know, maybe it doesn't work for me, but I think keeping that sort of beginner's mind, that openness, curiosity, and we'll see, and we'll have a chance to kind of share sort of what we might have observed. Of course, if you're a journaler, you can journal and write about these things. And I haven't been journaling in a while, but I'm almost tempted. Maybe I'll get out my journal and I'll just spend 2 minutes journaling after every class. What did I notice about myself? Instead of rushing downstairs and grabbing, you know, some ice cream, I'll just spend 2 minutes, you know, maybe just doing a little journaling. Okay, so friends, this is the end of our time together. So in closing, we're going to do just a closing meditation to close the sacred space. So please, once again, close your eyes. Take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. Together, let us say or think a small practice of self-love and self-compassion. You repeat after me. May I be safe.
May I be safe.
May I feel happiness.
May I feel happiness.
May my body be strong.
May my body be strong.
May my life unfold with ease.
May my life unfold with grace.
As we go through the week, doing our observations, may we remember to be gentle and compassionate towards ourselves. And just remember that this is a learning experience and opportunity. Now let's tilt our head back and smile. And take a moment of gratitude for this hour we've spent together in community. When you're ready, you may open your eyes.